Hello everyone, welcome to my Amonkhet set review. We are on part 2 of this review, with the color blue being the one I'm going to be talking about today. I know a lot of people were really curious about my opinions of Ancient Crab last stream. I know LeBeau was saying it was the best thing to hit standard since Gideon Battle for Zendikar. And yeah, it's a very controversial card. A lot of varying opinions on it. But I gotta say, Ancient Crab, 1 and 2 blue. It's a 1/5. I am not the biggest fan of it. I don't think it's gonna break the meta like LeBeau does. And yeah, I'm actually putting words into LeBeau's mouth. He did not say any of that. So just to avoid any drama, I'm just trying to be a little bit funny right now. But yeah, to start it off, Ancient Crab not gonna be running any of the decks that I'm playing. I'm sorry, Ancient Crab. I know you're ancient and all, but you're just not my cup of tea. So let's move on to the second card, Angler Drake, 4 and 2 blue, flying 4/4. When it enters the battlefield, you may return target creature to its owner's hand. Yep, that's that's another one that I'm not going to be playing with, I can tell you that much. I mean, maybe if there's a good ETB that you can bounce, but even then, there's just better cards that I'm sure can make that, things like that happen. Not too many interesting cards here at the start, but now we have a mythic. As Foretold, I do not believe this one actually made the cut in duels. Otherwise, I think I would have known about it. 2 and a blue, enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a time counter on As Foretold. Once per turn, you may pay 0 rather than pay the mana cost for a spell with converted mana cost X or less, where X is the number of time counters. So it's any spell. It's not just instants or sorceries, which I guess makes it better than, man. There's some card in Shadows over Innistrad that you use to make a ton of zombies with. I can't remember it off the top of my head. Some artifact. It's a 2-drop. But I don't see myself playing with As Foretold. I think it's kind of janky. You can probably make a deck with it and impress me, but it's not going to be something I'm going in the ladder with, just trying to get tons of wins in. I'm sorry if any of you guys like As Foretold, but I just can't see what it really does other than, make you really efficient, I guess. Not really something I'm excited for. Aven Initiate, 3 and a blue. Bird Warrior, in case you want to make your bird tribal deck. It has flying and embalm, 3/2. Yeah, getting another card that I just don't care about. I guess in draft, if you want to make your embalm deck, that would be cool. But so far, not impressed. Blue has been a lot less impressive than white. For any of you guys that weren't here for white, let's just compare the first 4 cards that I got to review. Look at how powerful these cards are. I got a meta-defining card, a card that shows up in some really strong decks. Anointed Procession sees a lot of play. Anointed Priest. Angel of Sanctions, a mythic that can get doubled by Anointed Procession. Now let's talk about the first 4 cards of blue. A crab, a bird, a mythic I'm never going to play, and a drake I'm never going to play. Come on, blue. And now you're just throwing me a card that's already in Ixalan? Okay, cancel. Cartouche of Knowledge. Will this card see any play? I don't think it will. Part of the reason Cartouche of Knowledge was so good, in Standard anyway, is that you could enchant pummelers with it, and essentially every time they doubled, they would double from the basis of a 2/2 rather than a 1/1, and they'd have flying, so it'd be harder to block them. And we also had, what's the name of that Hexproof Hydra? I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about. But there's just a lot of there's a lot of cards that we do not have access to with Cartouche of Knowledge, and I think as a result, it's not going to see as much play. There's also a card called Curious Obsession, which, if you ask me, kind of does a very similar thing, but I might even argue that it does it better because, first of all, it's 1 mana cheaper. And we already have a lot of cards that are difficult to block, with like Merfolk and whatnot. And I feel like Curious Obsession just does what Cartouche of Knowledge wants to do, but better for those kind of decks. And we don't have pummeler decks that you can just win super fast with Cartouche of Knowledge on. So I really don't think I'm going to be playing with Cartouche of Knowledge. It was a card that I had a lot of fun with once I saw that it broke into Standard for some pummeler decks, but we don't have pummeler, so therefore Cartouche of Knowledge just isn't going to be as good. Censor, here's a fun one. 1 in a blue, instant, counter target spell unless its controller pays 1, and it has cycling. This card I think is really good. This card has actually broken into Standard, and I think in my blue-white cycling deck that I'm going to build, I'm going to include at least 3 or 4 copies of this. The fact that you can just beat something on curve, and one thing that's really important about the meta right now is that a lot of decks are trying to play on curve. Like, how many times, for you arena players out there, have you seen Deeproot Elite on turn 2? Or a Drover on turn 2? And I think that Censor is going to be especially relevant against those kind of decks, because there's just so much that likes to play on curve right now. Too many decks, man. Too many decks that are trying to play on curve, and I think Censor is going to do a good job stopping them. The fact that you can cycle it is also relevant. You can try to hit your land drops. And yeah, I think blue-white cycling is going to be a quite a strong deck in Arena once we get these cards. Since most of the cycling deck is honestly just based on, you know, Amonkhet anyway, and I don't remember if Hour of Dev has cycling as a mechanic, because obviously Duels players didn't get access to Hour of Dev cards, so I'm not sure if we're gonna have cycling cards from Hour of Dev. But in any case, even with just Amonkhet having cycling cards, it's still like really strong, and I think it's going to do a lot of work. I really do. I think cycling is one of the stronger decks that we're going to have access to. 1 and a blue. Target player puts the top 5 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard, and it also has cycling. The problem with this card is I don't know if we have any great mill decks. I know there's a card we gained access to recently, and forgive me because I forgot the name of it. But yeah, there's definitely a mill enchantment that we have now, and again, I just forgot what it's called. But maybe Compelling Argument can go in that deck. I kind of doubt it. I feel like that deck would be quite weak. Maybe in Best of 1, who knows, but I'm kind of not sold. I'm not sold on mill right now. I just feel like an aggro deck could beat up a mill deck. Like, while I'm trying to mill Merfolks are just, you know, gonna kill me. So, I don't think Compelling Argument. I don't even think I'm gonna play it in my cycling deck. I think there's better cards than Compelling Argument that you can cycle, so it's just not something I'm gonna do. Cryptic Serpent. Here's a card that didn't see too much play in Duels. That's not to say that it's a bad card. Like, if you have enough cards in your graveyard, you can literally cast this for 2 and have a 6/5, but it just feels very vanilla. That's my problem with it. Like, you cast it and then nothing else happens, you know? It's not like Rekindling Phoenix, where you get it out and they have to kill it again. Or Direfleet Daredevil, where you cast it and then you have another spell that you can cast from your opponent's graveyard. It doesn't have that kind of effect. It just comes out and it's a big body that I feel like can easily die to a removal spell. And I want to like this card, I really do, but I don't really like it. I just feel like it's too vanilla to really have any impact at all. Curator of Mysteries, this is an interesting one. I am not well versed in the blue-white cycling decks, so I'm not sure if this is going to have a huge impact. It's not bad. You're getting a 4/4 for 4 with flying that helps you scry, and it has cycling. Maybe it is good, because you can throw it in your cycling deck, and if it's not going to work out, then just cycle it, you know? And it only has cycling 1, which is rather cheap for a cycle cost. And if you do get it out, great. You get to just start scrying, and you have a 4/4 flying body. My one problem is Rekindling Phoenix, yet again. I feel like would do wonderfully against Curator of Mysteries. So I'm having trouble loving this card. But I know there's a lot of filler in blue-white cycling, so maybe it can make the cut. I'm not sure. Something about casting it does sound fun though, and then you get to scry and really set up your future turns. And also you're making drakes when you're doing that. Maybe that's a legitimate strategy. But I'd have to see it. I'd have to play it before I know. I feel like I'm kind of just not sure about Curator of Mysteries at the current moment. Decision Paralysis. 3 and 1 blue. Instant. Tap up to 2 target creatures. Those creatures don't untap during their controller's next untap step. I think this is a pretty garbage card. You're paying 4 mana for this. I think there's far better things you can do for 4 mana than tap 2 guys down and they don't untap. This card I have no hopes for. I think it's going to be pretty bad. One thing that is cool about this card, though, is that it looks kind of like Inception, for any of you guys who have seen that movie. Eyes see only what is possible. A trained mind can explore the impossible. I mean, the flavor's kind of cool. The art's cool, but the card itself, I'm not on board with this card, that's for sure. Drakehaven. 2 and 1 blue. Enchantment. Whenever you cycle or discard a card, you may pay 1. If you do, create a 2/2 blue Drake creature token with flying. Now here is the card. Yeah, Zarvault says he wants to see what Drakehaven does with your favorable wins. Interesting. Huh. I never thought about that one, Zarvault. That's an interesting combo. Well, we'd have to look at how much cycling we have, right? I'm assuming you would use blue-white flyers because that fits right in with blue-white cycling. Say you ran 4 favorable wins and 4 Drakehavens, right? 4 favorable wins, 4 Drakehavens. You also get to run Curator of Mysteries, which is a flyer. I'm going to go to white real quick, just to see what else we might have access to. I don't know if there's any good flyers, so to speak, with cycling in white. But we do have access to... I'll see if I can find the card. You may need to give me a moment to find it. There we go. Forsake the Worldly. I think this card is pretty good in cycling. I know it's not a flyer, but I think that could help for that kind of deck. What you'd have to do, Zarvault, if you wanted to build that deck, you would have to really cut down on the number of flyers you use from Ixalan and Rivals of Ixalan. You'd have to use primarily cycling cards. So don't go into it with the idea that you're going to put a bunch of the flyers that we have in Ixalan, like all those pirates and whatnot. I don't think you should be doing that. I think you should be just running a ton of cycling cards, and favorable wins would just help them out. And then you could have Curator of Mysteries, and maybe it's a deck. We'll keep an eye on that strategy as we keep talking about cards. Essence Scatter, 1 and a blue, counter target creature spell, really good. We had access to this card in duels, and I think it performed quite admirably. yeah, I want to put this in my sideboard against a lot of these aggro decks and just get it in there, you know. Say we get our best of 3 matchup, and I have a control deck. I think just putting these 4 Essence Scatter in will really hurt Merfolk deck, and anything that can hose a Merfolk deck down, I'm generally down for. That deck is so difficult to beat, and I think Essence Scatter would do a great job of it. Floodwaters. Return up to 2 target creatures to their owner's hand. It's 6 mana. Cycling 2. I don't know how much I like this card. On the one hand, you can really set someone back. On the other hand, it's a 6 mana spell. I guess it's not bad, because you're going to be cycling this most of the time anyway, and if you ever get the mana open, then you get to just bounce 2 big things, and that's great. If you can bounce things when you have flying drakes that are just trying to get in for lethal, that might be pretty good. I don't think this card is as awful as it appears. Like if it's not going to work, then you just cycle it and you make a drake. You know? It's not like you have to cast it. You don't have to cast it. You can just cycle it, pay 1, make a 2/2 flying drake. And if you do get late game, you know, you get 6 mana, I think this card could have a big impact. I know Merfolk is a deck that relies heavily on, you know, buffing their own Merfolk, and say they have like a 5/5 Deeproot Elite, you can just bounce it, and then it returns to the board as a 1/1. I think that's really good. Also, Scarab God. That's a card that's heavily in the format right now. Say they exile a creature and make a 4/4 copy of it. Well, now Floodwaters can bounce that card, and you'll never have to see it again. Yeah, maybe I'm being a little bit crazy when I say I like this card, but I think it's pretty good. I think you're going to be cycling it anyway most of the times and making your Drake, and otherwise, if you're not doing that, maybe you have 6 mana open and you can really set someone back and your Drakes can swing in for the game. I think that's pretty good. Gale Strike, instant, return target tapped creature to its owner's hand. Draw a card. Huh. You know what this kind of reminds me of? There's a card from Rivals of Ixalan that I'm going to go to, and I can't remember the name of it, but I should be able to find it. Crashing Tide. Crashing Tide has flash as long as you control a Merfolk. Return target creature to its owner's hand, draw a card. Return target tapped creature to its owner's hand, draw a card. It has instant speed. You don't have to have a Merfolk out to cast this. There's not much vigilance in the format right now, no? Like, most of the decks that are being played don't run too many vigilant creatures, so Gale Strike might actually be decent. You buy yourself time with your control deck, you draw a card, they have to recast it again. I don't think this is bad. Am I going to run it, though? Maybe not, but I wouldn't call this card awful by any means. The question is, how well does it compete with other cards in a Dimir control deck or an Azorius control deck? I don't know. I wouldn't scoff at this card, though, that's for sure. I think you can really cripple someone with it. And again, we're going to be getting Scarab God, and being able to return creatures that are exiled is going to deal with them permanently. And then you'll draw a card after that as well. Sounds pretty good to me. Yeah. Alright, Glyphkeeper. 3 and 2 blue. Sphinx. Flying. Whenever it becomes the target of a spell or ability for the first time each turn, counter that spell or ability, Embalm 7. Glyphkeeper always seemed like it would be awesome on the surface. It never seemed very good when I played it. I agree with you, Zarval. I was actually, you kind of stole the words right out of my mouth. I was very excited for this card going into Amonkhet. I thought we were going to have, you know, this big flyer that they just can't deal with. But the more I've played with it, I feel like it's not that good. And that may be a symptom of vehicles being in Magic Duels, where you'll get Smuggler's Copters out or Aethersphere Harvesters out that can just trade with this card and make it, you know, feel kind of awful. Maybe that's why it was not good in duels, or it could just maybe be not a good card, you know? I know in Arena, our flyers are not as good as our flyers in duels. You can argue that we have Rekindling Phoenix, which would put a beat down on this card, sure. I will concede that. But I feel like this card kind of goes in a more control-y deck that has ways to deal with Rekindling Phoenix, you know? Because you're kind of just running a card that's hard to kill, so you might as well just run counterspells as well to really protect this guy. Do I think he's awful? No. Do I think he's amazing? I also don't think he's amazing. But I think he might be a little bit better in Arena than he was in Duels, simply because we don't have access to Sky Sovereign, or Smuggler's Copter, or Bone Picker, that's another one. Aethersphere Harvester, Heart of Quran. We don't have access to those cards. And maybe Glyphkeeper is actually a little bit better as a result. Like, you could run an expensive blue-white flyers deck. Like, you could run Glyphkeeper and Azor, the Mind something. I can't remember the name of him. Let's just bring him up real quick. Azor the Lawbringer. Okay, I said Mindbringer. It's not quite correct. So say you're running Azor the Lawbringer and you're running, oops, wrong set. If you're running Glyphkeeper, that might work. Languish always got mine. That's true, Zarvault, but that's another card that that Arena players don't have access to. I know we're going to have access to a 3 mana, 3 damage removal spell, Sweltering Suns. Yeah, that's what it's called, Sweltering Suns. We will have access to that after Amonkhet comes, and I believe that card's going to see a lot of play, simply because it's the best sweeper that we have access to right now for, you know, CMC. But I think Glyphkeeper isn't going to be awful. Not as bad as it was in Duels anyway. And maybe this is a deck. It probably isn't. It's probably a little too janky to be a deck running Azor and Glyphkeeper, but I don't know. I have my hopes. I think it has potential, but yeah, Sweltering Suns and Phoenix definitely are gonna hurt this card, and maybe it's a card that you just sideboard because those cards are too good against Glyphkeeper at this current time. And I know you can embalm them. You can get them back after you get Sweltering Suns, but that's a little bit slow. It takes 7 mana to even get them back. Your opponent's doing things while you're going for that, and maybe they can, you know, grab control of the board state as that happens. But yeah, I don't hate him. I definitely don't hate him. I think he might be sideboard material if you're up against a deck that doesn't have a good answer to something like this. He could really put the beat down on your opponent. And right now there's not too many answers. I know there's Sweltering Suns and Phoenix, but other than those, like Vraska's Contempt, for example. Vraska's Contempt wouldn't actually work. Vraska herself wouldn't actually work. There's a lot. It's actually kind of tough to kill. Heckma's Sentinels, 2 and a blue. Human Cleric, whenever you cycle or discard a card, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn. I don't think this card's very good. It's very vanilla, and even if you can make it like a 5/6, for example, by cycling a ton of things, I think it's very prone to removal spells. And it's very prone right as you play it, right? Like, say you play this on turn 3, according to your curve. Is that what you want to be doing on turn 3? Merfolk are going to be getting out the 2/4 Kumena. Yeah, they're going to be getting out Kumena on turn 3. And I don't know. I feel like it just doesn't filter into the curve that well. And even if you make it really big, it's just a vanilla creature otherwise that dies pretty easily. Hieroglyphic Illumination. 3 and a blue, instant, draw 2 cards, cycling 1. I'm pretty sure this card gets played a lot in blue-white cycling, and I think it's going to be excellent in that deck. I mean, drawing 2 cards for 4 mana at instant speed, or being able to make a Drake otherwise and still draw a card, ooh, that sounds so fun. So you tap 3 mana, right? 1 for the cycling. No, 2 mana. You tap 2 mana. 1 to cycle it, and 1 to make the Drake. And then you draw a card. You get, more cycling cards that you can cycle to make more Drakes. That sounds awesome. Yeah, I love this card, and I am very excited to play with it. Also, another thing about Hieroglyphic Illumination, we do not have access to Glimmer of Genius at this current time. So I think this card is going to see a lot of play because we can't use Glimmer. The fact that you can cast it at instant speed makes it viable for a lot of Drago decks, Drago control. I think Hieroglyphic Illumination is going to be quite strong. Going to be hard to invest in these sets when they go out of rotation in the next 6 months or so. So that is Q4 when the set is going to rotate out. You are making... I'm not saying you're making an assumption, but it's sort of like just because they rotate out doesn't mean we won't be able to play with them, And I know they've said that. Also, I think the economy is going to be changing because they've been asking so much about our thoughts on the economy. I think that the economy, as it is right now, is not going to be where it is right now. You could be right. You could still be right that it's going to be hard to invest in these cards. I'm not disagreeing with you. But I think it's going to be better than it was in the past. And I'm hoping they add gems soon, because I would like to just maybe spend some money just to, not have to put up with the grind as much. Yeah, maybe you're right. But right now in this stream, I'm going to try to be positive and act as though we can play with all of these cards. Because that's kind of a rant that I'd have to get into, Angry Beard. And it's not something I feel like getting into right now. So even though I might not be playing with all these cards, I'm going to try to frame it in a positive way as though I can play with all these cards, even though that might not be the case. Just to talk about decks a little bit more easily or so. Anyway, Illusory Wrappings, 2 and a blue. Enchant creature. Enchanted creature has base power and toughness 0-2. I think this card's pretty bad. First of all, it does not take out abilities, right? And I know Long Tusk Cub is not a card, but it's kind of the one I'm thinking of. Like, you could enchant a Long Tusk Cub with this, and it could still grow. Like, it could keep growing, because it would just grow from an 0-2 to a 1-2, It's all good. I still like getting people's thoughts on all the cards. Fair enough, man. Well, you're about to get my take on Kefnet the Mindful. 2 and a blue. Flying indestructible. Kefnet can't attack or block unless you have 7 or more cards in hand. 3 and a blue, draw a card, then you may return a land you control to its owner's hand. I'm actually very low on this card. And part of the reason why I'm low on this card is that we're getting 2 sets with 8 gods that all have indestructible. We already have a card called Rekindling Phoenix that you kind of need Vraska's Contempt to answer. And now we're going to get 8 gods that all have indestructible. I think Vraska's Contempt is just going to hose this card. And it kind of has a difficult ability to work with anyway. I know in duels, this card was already kind of awkward. Like, you'd have to play in such a weird way to make sure that you had 7 cards in hand. And now in Arena, we're going to be facing decks that are even more aggressive, with merfolks and dinosaurs than we're used to in duels. And they're going to have access to Vraska's Contempt. I think Kefnet is a bad card. And And the comparison I make with Kefnet is actually a card. Let's see if I can find it. Nezahal. I think Kefnet competes with Nezahal. I know their CMCs are completely different, but they're kind of similar. Kefnet focuses on having a big hand size. This guy just doesn't care about your hand size, right? So that's better already. With Kefnet, you often have to discard, and it gets kind of awkward. Whereas with Nezahal, your hand just keeps getting bigger. And I've had plenty of games both with and against Nezahal where they've had like 15 cards in hand, or I've had 15 cards in hand. And I think he just does what Kefnet is trying to do, but he actually does it, you know? Kefnet tries to do things and he fails. Nezahal tries to do things and he succeeds. I've had so many games, because you draw so many cards every time they cast a non-creature spell, and normally you're running a control deck, which means you're drawing a ton of cards anyway, that Nezahal just wins the game. And just because he doesn't have Indestructible doesn't really matter too much, because whenever they try to kill him, you're just going to discard 3 cards, and it's fine. And normally that's not as hard as you think. Like, you'd think discarding 3 cards is a lot, but when you have like a 10-card hand, it's nothing, you know? And you're able to draw 1 card every turn, every time they cast a non-creature spell. Not just an instant or sorcery spell, a non-creature spell. You're drawing a card. And, like, there's so many reasons that I think Nezahal is just so much better than Kefnet. Zarvault says, Kefnet, another card that has been great some games and does nothing a lot of my games. I think that's an accurate way to assess it, Zarvault. I, too, have used Kefnet a lot, and most of the time that I cast him in duels, he does nothing, and I lose. The other time, he's amazing, and he'll steal a game simply because he's Kefnet. But, no, I think Vraska's Contempt. I think there's too many answers for Kefnet right now, and all the other gods, and he's going to have it rough in this meta. Labyrinth Guardian, 1 in a blue. Whenever it becomes the target of a spell, sacrifice it, and it has Embalm, just a 2/3 body. I think this card's pretty meh. I don't think I'm going to use it. Not really much else I want to say. So let's go on to Lay Claim. 5 and 2 blue. Enchant permanent. You control enchanted permanent. Wow. Cycling 2. I'm really curious about this card. It's hard to evaluate because it's really expensive, but the fact that you can control a permanent sounds unbelievably good. So I just want to see what people are saying about it. Sometimes I have to look at what other people are saying before I can form my own opinion, just to get a general consensus, you know? So let's just look at him real quick on Mythic Spoiler. 10 cents. The verdict is not very high on TCG. What about Mythic Spoiler? Oops, I gotta actually write the card name. Let's see. Nice that it says permanent, I agree. You can hit Planeswalkers. And you can also cycle it, you know? I don't know, like, not many verdicts on it. Can't we have a decently costed mind control effect anymore? 3 extra mana for added cycling is ridiculous. Is it a 3 mana cycling? It's a 2 mana cycling. Oh, I get it. Mind control, but 3 extra mana to cast it. Fair enough. A lot of people don't seem to like it. You think it's a limited card? The reason I'm not sure is because someone casted this on me in pre-release and absolutely wrecked me. You think it's a sideboard card? Maybe. Here's the thing is, you get to cycle it for 2 mana, and in your blue-white cycling deck, that's not that hard to do. Like, you just cycle it and make a Drake, and if you ever get late game, then you get to steal a permanent. You get to steal a Planeswalker, you get to steal Scarab God. Maybe I'm getting a little janky, but yeah, I think it could go into the Drake deck, Angry Beard, and I'm surprised the verdict is so low on this card, because I kind of want to try it out. Maybe it is too expensive. I'm not sure. It's hard to evaluate because I don't know, man. You have your Drakehaven out, and if you cycle it, you can do awesome things. But you do have to get to 7 mana. It does eat counterspells pretty hard. Like, you tap out for the turn, and then they just counterspell it. That would hurt. And maybe that's why it might not be as good against Scarab God as I'm hoping it would be. I don't think it's awful, but it's not great either. I definitely want to try it out, though. I like to experiment with cards, and this is one that I would definitely experiment with, because I want to get an opinion on it. You know, I want to know for myself what I think about this card, and because I've never played with it, it was never added in duels, I'll never know, you know, until I actually play the deck. So I think it's something to keep an eye out for. I'm not saying it's going to break the meta, in fact, far from it, but I don't think it's awful. I really don't. I think you can steal planeswalkers, dude. You know? Here's the thing, though. If you control enchanted permanent, would it go to your side of the board? I think it would. Like, if you stole a Vraska, I think it would be on your side, and then you would be the one making 2/2s with Menace. I believe it would work that way. Anyway, Naga Oracle, 3 and a blue. When Naga Oracle enters the battlefield, look at the top 3 cards of your library. Put any number of them into your graveyard and the rest on top of your library in any order. 4 mana to reorder your deck. I don't think that's very good. I feel like there's way better cards for 4 mana that can get you cards, one of them being Hieroglyphic Illumination. And I guess this at least has a body, but it doesn't draw you cards. It just reorders cards, right? Look at the top 3. Yeah, it just reorders your cards. It doesn't even draw you anything. So it's not like a Hieroglyphic Illumination. It's just it's like a scry, more like. Don't think it's very good. New Perspectives. When New Perspectives enters the battlefield, draw 3 cards. Wow. As long as you have 7 or more cards in hand, you may pay 0 rather than pay cycling costs. That's interesting, because you need to... First of all, you need 6 mana just to cast this thing. I think it makes Drakehaven really good, though. Now you only have to pay 1 for your Drakehaven, and you draw 3 cards as you cast it. You do need 7 cards in hand just to do this, though. But here's the thing. What if you have a Tezahal New Perspectives cycling deck? Because here's the thing. You need to have 7 or more cards in hand, but Tezahal can do a great job with that. Hieroglyphic Illumination does a good job with that. You have a lot of expensive cards. That's the one problem with Tezahal as a 7-drop and New Perspectives as a 6-drop. But I think this card's pretty good. And I'm saying that partly because I have seen it go into standard decks. I haven't actually played with it before. I do not believe it ever was in duels. Yeah, if it was in duels, I would have known about it. But I'm definitely going to try it. I can't say if it's going to be amazing or not, but the fact that you can make your Drakehavens pay 0 sounds great. And you draw 3 cards right as you cast it, too. I like it. Open into Wonder. X and 2 blue. X creatures can't be blocked this turn. Until end of turn, those creatures gain whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. So assuming you have a board state with a lot of creatures and you cast that, it's great. The problem is you need to make assumptions. You need to assume that you have a good board state, because if you don't have a good board state, it's a dead card. And it's also kind of expensive. Like, I'm assuming you'd usually pay like 4 or 5 mana to make a lot of guys unblockable. And I know you can tailor how much you spend with X, but not a really big fan of this card, because I think it makes the assumption that you have a board state already that can make great use of it, which isn't always the case. And if you don't have that board state, it's a dead card. And also, when you make these things unblockable, they can just kill them, you know? Say you do tap out and make some guys unblockable and they settle the Wreckage you. Like, that's just awful, you know? I think the more I think about it, the more I dislike that card. Pull from Tomorrow, X and 2 blue. Draw X cards, then discard a card. I know that CGB was saying that we're in a meta right now that's really aggressive, and I agree with him. I think Merfolk and Dinosaur decks are something we gotta think about. And once this comes in, we'll also have Cruel Monsters, and we'll have red deck wins. And I don't think that Pull from Tomorrow is... I don't think we can get it out to do too much work. Put on MTGO now. 9 questions with Nate. Put on MTGO. What does that mean, Covert? Sorry for the derail. No, it's fine, dude. I don't mind getting derailed. I love talking about stuff. If there's anything that you can describe me is it's someone that likes to talk. Oh, 9 questions with Nate. Huh. I'll have to check that out. Is it the official Magic channel or MTGO now? I'm assuming you're talking about the official Magic channel. I'll have to check that out though, a little bit later and see what what questions Nate receives. You know. Once this can be played, I don't think Merfolk will be used that much. I think they will at first, especially if we don't get wiped. Players aren't just going to jump ship immediately. Like, they're going to stay with their decks that are doing them quite well. And Merfolk is one of those. Also, you got to take the knowledge of the players into account. Do they all know the meta to a T? Maybe not. Maybe they still want to have fun with Merfolk. Nate beat Shuhei Nakamura. I don't know my pros that well. But yeah, I'll definitely have to check that out. It sounds fun. Sounds like a fun stream. Yeah, I'm excited now. You gave me some. This is what I'm going to be doing. As soon as I'm done with this stream, I'm going to be checking out Nate Price beating pros. I'm assuming Shuhei Nakamura is a pro. That's with me assuming wipes come when these sets come out. Yeah, you do kind of have to make assumptions right now to say things because we don't know, so we have to just hypothesize. And I'm not sure either. You know, the verdict isn't clear whether or not we're getting wiped. I know CGB does not want to get wiped. I don't think I do either with all the cards that I have, but who knows? You can't really say definitively one way or the other if we're getting wipes or not. Unless anyone has proof, I would be happy to see it, but I don't think we do. Anyway, going back to Pull from Tomorrow, I think it's going to be a bad card. There's going to be a lot of aggro decks, especially after Amonkhet comes, and even if they're not playing Merfolk, even if Merfolk isn't a thing that people play anymore, which you're probably right. Like, the longer this goes on, Merfolk are going to see less and less play. Pull from Tomorrow is still going to be bad because there's just too many aggro decks. And it'll look like a dead card in your hand. River Serpent, 5 and a blue. Can't attack unless there are 5 or more cards in your graveyard. It has cycling, but man, there are way better cycling cards than River Serpent. I'm trying to take a look at every cycling card and ask myself, does this go into my cycling deck, right? Because that's one deck that I am excited to build, because I'm sure CGB can attest with cycling in duels that it was not all it was cut out to be with the limited card selection that we have. I will go out on a limb and say that my cycling deck was complete garbage in duels, and the fact that we're going to have all these cycling cards makes me quite happy. I can actually trim bad cycling cards and add good cycling cards. And I think River Serpent is a bad cycling card. I think it's something that I just don't want to play with. There's just way better cards like Censor and Hieroglyphic Illumination and Cast Out. Like, we're actually going to have some pretty valid cycle cards that we can play with, which I didn't really have that experience in duels. It just, I feel like they just gave us too many crappy cycling cards and not enough good ones. And if they did give us good cycling cards, rarity restrictions, right? Like, we could only have 2 Drake Havens in our cycle deck. I want to have 4 Drake Havens in my cycle deck. Like, I want to be guaranteed to draw that thing. And yeah, I think because we have so much selection with cycling, I think River Serpent is something that we can be happy to say, no, you're not going to make it into the cycling deck. Maybe when we have less cards, when we haven't spent all our wild cards on our cycling decks, maybe River Serpent will be in there until then. But until that time, you know, we have a lot of cycling stuff to play around with. Sacred Excavation. You thought Nate had said that a wipe was coming? Maybe. I couldn't confirm or deny it, so. Sacred Excavation, 3 and a blue, sorcery. Return up to 2 target cards with cycling from your graveyard to your hand. I mean, I know I like cycling decks, but that doesn't mean I need to get my cycling cards back. I kind of don't like this card, and I could be wrong about it. It wouldn't be the first time, but I just don't feel like I need this. Like, especially early game, this is just a dead card, you know? Like, you just have a 4-mana dead sorcery card until you have a graveyard that can get stuff back. And yeah, I think Sacred Excavation is kind of a pipe dream. Like, you're hoping that you get into this board state where you have multiple Hieroglyphic Illuminations and cast outs in your graveyard, and that you get them back. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is not a pipe dream. Maybe you can actually do this fairly frequently, but just from my first glance, I think it's a little wishy-washy, so to speak. And it's not going to be something that I want to go for. I think with my cycling deck, it's going to focus on having cycling cards rather than cards that get back cycling cards, you know? Like, I just want raw amounts of cycling rather than Sacred Excavation. And I could be wrong. We'll have to see, you know. We'll play around with these cards, and who knows, maybe you do want your Hieroglyphic Illuminations back. Maybe you do want to get your cast outs back, and you're willing to forgo having a good card on turn 4 to do that. Scribe of the Mindful, 2 and a blue. Tap 1 and then it taps itself. Sacrifice Scribe of the Mindful. Return target instant or sorcery from your graveyard to your hand. I think this card's bad, and I will show you guys why I think it's bad. We have a card called Flood of Recollection right now that basically does the exact same thing that that creature is trying to do. Return target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. Return target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. I just can't see why you would play Scribe of the Mindful over Flood of Recollection. And it sounds like a fun card for like a janky deck. Like, you can put this in and just get stuff back, but I think more often than not, it's even if Flood of Recollection wasn't in the game, right? Like, say this is the card that we use to get stuff back. I think it's just going to get Lightning Strikes or Moment of Cravings, and because it needs to tap itself. That's the thing. It has Summoning Sickness, so it can't do it immediately. And I think it's just kind of garbage, honestly. Especially with Flood of Recollection. Alright, Seeker of Insight. 1 and a blue. Tap, draw a card, then discard a card. Activate this ability only if you've cast a non... No. Just no. It's essentially Smuggler's Copter if it was really bad and you had to cast non-creature spells for it to work. That card's awful. One of the worst cards. No. We can still say that Ancient Crab is worse. But yeah, I'm not going to play around with that card. Shimmer Scale Drake, 4 and a blue, flying, 3/4. It's probably good draft. You can cycle it. But once we have full collections, not a huge fan. Scribe of the Mindful plus Journey to Eternity. Okay, now we're talking. Shallen's selling me on some jank right now. I can appreciate that. No, that sounds fun. It's funny, you can name one card and it can change everything, right? Sounds pretty janky. Would that be good? Probably not. It sounds very janky still. I At the same time, is it fun? Yes, it's fun. It is very fun. I don't know. Maybe I'll build a Scribe of the Mindful Journey deck now that Shaolin has thrown that card out there. But I still think my verdict is still the same. That I don't think Scribe of the Mindful is that good. I think they're just gonna kill it. The problem with Journey is that it does enable 2-for-1s, right? Like, you cast your Journey and then they cast a removal spell in response. I know they have to have an instant speed removal spell. But even if they can't answer it, right? Like, say they don't have their Lightning Strike, say they don't have their Moment of Craving in response, they can still Vraska's Contempt it. And Vraska's Contempt is a very popular card, which I think is going to see even more play going forward. Because we're getting 8 Indestructible Gods, right? 8 Indestructible Gods that Vraska's Contempt will love to hit. And because of the rise of Vraska's Contempt, I think that Scribe is just, like, you know, the Journey decks in particular, not just Scribe, but just any Journey deck is just going to get hit on a lot. I agree, Journey has been pissing me off lately. Playing it or against it, Shaolin? Or have you been on the receiving end of Journey just wrecking you, or have you been trying to play Journey and been getting wrecked? My experience playing Journey is I enchant a creature and then it gets Vraska's Contempted instantly. Maybe I've just pulled bad straws, you know? It's been getting stuck in my hand and I've been getting 2-for-1'd. Yeah, me too. I've had the same problem. The trick is getting your Brontodon out and then enchanting Brontodon and then sacking Brontodon, but it's very tough to do that. Like, it sounds easy when you say it like that, but it is not easy to do that. And another problem with the Journey to Eternity deck is that it's quite slow. Like, a lot of the times, both with and against it, I'm able to race and just win the race while they're dirtling, trying to get their Journey to Eternity to work. And I'm just flying over it with my Phoenix, or I'm playing my Regisaur Alpha, and I'm pointing my Lightning Strikes at their face because I really want to race. And I think Journey is just kind of slow and awkward. As much as I want to like it, I think it's a fun card. I will not hate anyone for trying to make a good Journey deck, but I haven't been able to make anything that I consider like tier 1 or anything. Not even close. And it sucks because I want to get my Chupacabras back, but you just got your first win with the... What? Shaolin, did you actually spend 4 rare wild cards on Deeproot Champion? Because if so, I can't even be mad at you. If you spent 4 wild cards on Deeproot Champion, I can't even be mad. That is serious commitment. You have 3? Okay. I'm assuming you did not spend wild cards. Okay. That would... I mean, I would applaud you if you did. I would have given you a standing ovation if you if you actually did that. Like, that's courageous, man. But yeah, I'm sorry. I like your Deeproot Champion deck. I don't think I'm gonna try it. Maybe if I have a full collection, I'll try it just once. Negated a Savage Stomp and they quit. Wow. That is cool, though, that you're even able to play that. Like, not many people can say they've tried that deck. Anyway, I believe I was on Slitherblade. 1 blue. It's a 1/2 Naga Rogue that can't be blocked. I think this card's garbage. And part of the reason why I think it's garbage is because we have a Merfolk for 1 blue that can't be blocked. And Merfolk is actually a relevant tribe. Naga Rogue is not a relevant tribe. I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry if you're trying to make a Naga deck, but I don't think that's going to work out too well for you if you are. Yeah, it just gets outclassed by unblockable Merfolk, and I don't see why anyone would run this card over the Merfolk counterparts. Even if the Merfolk is a 1/1 and this is a 1/2. I do want to check something, though. I want to check something with Deeproot Elite. Does he target only Merfolk with his counters? Yeah, whenever another Merfolk enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1 counter on target Merfolk you control. If that was target creature we control, then maybe this card wouldn't be as awful. But even then, even if that were the case, if Deep Root Elite put it on creatures, it still doesn't get pumped by your Mist-Cloaked Merfolk, whatever it's called. I forget the name, but you guys know what I'm talking about. Like, the Merfolk Lords wouldn't work well with Slither Blade, so even in that case, not that good. Ta Crop Skirmisher, 1 and a blue, Embalm. Just kind of a garbage card. I think the art looks pretty cool. Look at this thing. It's like this massive anaconda that has blades. I think that's awesome. But the card itself looks pretty awful. Trial of Knowledge, 3 and a blue. When a trial enters the battlefield, draw 3 cards, then discard a card. When a cartouche enters the battlefield, return Trial of Knowledge to its owner's hand. I have a hard time wanting to run this over Hieroglyphic Illumination, and so I kind of don't like it. The one thing I'm a little nervous about is that that I did talk about a trial the other day that everyone loved, and now I'm talking about a trial today. I don't wanna stomp on anyone's dreams or get disproved by Sam Black for running trials, but I think this card's garbage. I really do. And if Sam Black ran that card, then screw you, Sam Black, for ruining all my verdicts, you know? But yeah, I think I think Trial and Knowledge is bad. No one likes Trial? Okay, good. I didn't want Sam Black to ruin my points again, you know? Darn you, Sam Black, you jerk. Vizier of Many Faces, 2 and 2 blue. You may have Vizier of Many Faces enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, except if Vizier of Many Faces was embalmed. The token has no mana cost, it's white, and it's a zombie in addition to its other types. It's a zombie in addition. You may have it enter the battlefield. I have to read this one more thoroughly, because there's a lot of text here. As a copy of any creature on the battlefield. Okay. Except if it was embalmed, the token has no mana cost. It's white. So I guess if you embalm it the second time, if you embalm it, they can bounce it and it'll die, which is kind of sad. I don't think Graveyard Hate is too popular right now. And I believe there is a card called is it called Scavenger Grounds? I can't remember the name of the card. Let me just look it up. The one that hates graveyards. Scavenger Grounds. Is this the card that hates graveyards? Yeah. So we are going to be getting access. Hello, Jester. We are going to be getting access to Scavenger Grounds. And I think that card's going to be pretty popular because of Scarab God. I would not be surprised to see tons of Scavenger Grounds be played. And what's my verdict? This card's not bad. I won't say it's awful. Like, copying anything sounds fun. But I think the embalm part of it is just gonna get a lot of hate because of what the format's going to be. And the format's going to include Scarab God, and it's going to include Scavenger Grounds, which by definition will make Vizier of Many Faces a little worse than you want it to be. It looks fun. I would totally want to play around with this card, but I don't know, man. The more I think about it, the more I dislike it. And I hate saying that, because I love just copying any card on the battlefield. Like, you guys have no idea how much I wanted to love Protean Raider. And for any of you that don't know who Protean Raider is, I'll just bring him up, just so you guys can see. Protean Raider, kind of similar to that card, where if you attacked with any creature, you may play Protean Raider as a copy of any creature on the battlefield. Kind of similar, not the exact same, but I want to like these cards, but I know that they're not as good as you want them to be. This card sees standard play, really. You'd think with Scavenger Grounds and whatchamacallit, with Scarab God, that Vizier wouldn't be good, you know? I guess you could run it in your Scarab God deck alongside Scarab God. But I don't know. I'm kind of hesitant. Even if it sees standard play, I kind of don't like it that much. And I'm probably going to play around with it. And my opinion's probably going to completely change after I start playing around with the new cards. And I'll love it. But, I don't know, man. 4 mana to copy something when we're seeing all these aggro decks. It does enter the battlefield as a copy of, so it's not like it enters the battlefield and then becomes the copy, right? So you couldn't just lightning strike it instantly, is how I'm reading it. Say you copied a Ripjaw Raptor, right? You wouldn't be able to lightning strike it as soon as it hit the battlefield because it would already be a Ripjaw Raptor. So that makes it a little bit better. Maybe I'm overestimating Scavenger Grounds. Maybe Graveyard Hate. Because here's the thing with Scavenger Grounds is it's kind of an awkward card that you probably just want to bring out of the sideboard, right? If we're doing best of ones, am I really going to run Scavenger Grounds to try and deal with Scarab God? Like, I'm scared of Scarab God, don't get me wrong, but do I expect to face him so frequently that I have to run Scavenger Grounds in my main deck for best of one every single time? Probably not. I probably don't have to do that. It's probably a sideboard card that I bring in after I face the Scarab God deck, because it's just really awkward on your mana base. It's not like Field of Ruin, where you can sort of fix your mana base, even with it in there. Whereas, I don't know, I think Vizier, you're probably right. I think Scavenger Grounds isn't going to see too much play unless we're talking best of 3. And when we're talking best of 1, you'll be able to copy a lot of things. He will be more present than dinos are now. Wow, that is a bold prediction from Monk. I think dinos do get a lot worse once Amonkhet comes around. But more play than dinos now. Like, you're not talking about dinos next month when dinos, stop being played in favor of Gruul monsters. You're talking about dinos now. I don't know, man. Dinos see a lot of play. Dinos see a ton of play. But yeah, I think it'll see play. I think I do agree that it's going to see play. I don't know if I'm going to jump that ship and say that it's going to see more play than dinos currently. But the more I think about it, Scavenger Grounds is more of a sideboard card, so that makes Vizier more of a main deck card as a result. Alright, let's talk about a more boring Vizier. Vizier of Tumbling Sands. 2 into blue. Tap it and you untap target permanent, cycling. I believe Shaolin actually ran this card in a challenge deck. I'm talking Scarab God will be 30 to 40% meta. Oh, Scarab God, not Vizier of Many Faces. I mean, that's kind of hard to say. I think Gruul Monsters will be the meta, and I think Red Deck Winds will be the meta, and I think Scarab God will be the meta. I think those 3 decks in particular will dominate what gets played. I'm actually thinking Gruul Monsters might dominate the meta the most, simply because it won. Gruul Monsters won GP Memphis. And anyone who watched that event, anyone that watched Gruul Monsters win GP Memphis, now has the assumption that Gruul Monsters is the strongest deck because it won. So therefore, they're going to want to play Gruul Monsters. And I would say the same thing if Scarab God won the tournament. They would be like, okay, let's just run Scarab God then, you know? And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe not as many people watched GP Memphis as I'm saying, as I'm giving credit for. But, I don't know. Scarab God only takes 2 mythics. Gruul Monsters is like 8 mythics and 2 rares. That's a fair point. You get 2 Scarab Gods, you get 4 Chupacabras, which are all uncommons. Assuming you run Hostage Taker, those are rares. I'm not saying you will, I'm just saying that that's a card that you like to think about in your Scarab God deck. Vizier is a rare. Approach will be popular also. Probably. I know Sanguine Sacrament is pretty popular, so I can easily see the Sanguine Sacrament players transitioning into Approach, Which, by the way, that's going to make me quite happy, because then I'll lose games faster rather than have to wait until I get milled. So I'm actually happy that I'm going to lose games faster. The deck that I think might be popular, I feel like red deck wins could also be quite popular, because you said this to me jokingly, and you said that I don't need to buy rare lands if I'm playing red deck wins. But I think that's actually a good point, because that means none of your rare lands need to get spent, really. And then you just focus on good red cards, and it's a fast deck, so you can grind pretty quickly with it. Even if you're not going for 30 wins a day, like you can go for 10 wins a day and get it over with and like this. Like it'll be so fast with the red deck wins. So I think that is also a candidate for fastest, a deck that a lot of people are going to go for. Approach guy right here. Are you going to buy the Approach Challenger deck, though? Because I know they're coming out with some decks next month. I know you don't play much Paper Magic, Monk, but I am curious. Are you going to buy that? Or any of the Challenger decks? Or are you just, no, that's not going to happen. It's a waste of money. What's your thought about that? Because I kind of want to get one. Even though I don't play much Paper Magic, I think it would be a lot of fun. And I have enough friends that I'm close with where if I bought them, I'd be able to play it a couple times. So I think it could be a lot of fun for me. Not sure which one I'm going to buy, though. I know there's the Approach one, there's the Mardu Vehicles one, there's the Hazoret Red Deck Wins one, and there is a Golgari Counters one. You have no idea? I kind of want to get them. I know they're $30, but you don't spend money on paper. Yeah, that's kind of what I thought you were going to say, because I know you don't spend much money on that anymore, so... I'm going aggro just because of the quick games. Okay, so you would be someone like me who's gonna go probably for Gruul Monsters or Red Deck Wins. I'm not sure what I'm gonna go for. I'm not gonna say on stream I'm gonna go for this deck just yet, because I really haven't figured it out. But I'm kind of leaning on aggro as well because of quick games. That's what I mainly play in Arena is aggro, because it makes getting the wins that I want to get a lot faster. But anyway, going back to conversation about the actual cards. Vizier of Tumbling Sands, 2 and a blue, and we were just talking about how it cycles. You untap target permanents, and you may cycle it. I think this is a garbage card, but I think I've seen Shaolin play it in some decks. There's definitely a deck that... I can't remember what your win con was. It might have been Ulamog or something, where you were untapping lands. I really can't remember, but you were running Vizier of Tumbling Sands for some reason. And I don't know why. Same reason I haven't said, well, not topping my hand just yet. Monk played it, garbage card confirmed. Just kidding for the lulz. I'm sorry, Monk. I'm sorry if it sounded that way. I don't mean to say it to sound like that. Oh man, I'm such a dick now. The verdict is out that I'm an asshole who picks on Monk for running janky cards. I'm not doing that, man. That's not what I intend. It was the Sphinx-looking artifact? What on earth were you running? Oh man, now I'm even more confused. What were you trying to do with Sphinx Artifact? Is that the one that taps creatures down? The Bontu's Monument, right? Bontu's Monument taps creatures down or something? It's probably a different card than what that one. No, because Bontu looks more like a bird, right? Oracle Vault or something like that. I don't know, man. We're getting way sidetracked, and I just can't even remember, unfortunately. So we are at the end. Just 3 more cards left to review. So Winds of Rebuke. 1 and a blue. Return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. Each player puts the top 2 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard. Interesting. So it's essentially a disperse that mills both players 2 cards. Why would you want to have 2 cards in your graveyard, though? Is there anything that can take advantage of of getting a big graveyard fast. I guess GPG, God Pharaoh's Gift, but I don't think God Pharaoh's Gift would run Winds of Rebuke. Yeah, I can't see anything. Scarab God and GPG, yeah. I'm trying to think of ways that this card can work, but I don't think it's good enough. Maybe you could run this as your Disperse, you know? But I kind of don't like it. Because I think, I don't know, maybe Scarab God can take advantage of it, but there's got to be better cards than Winds of Rebuke that you can use with Scarab God, right? It's not like we only have access to Amonkhet cards. We have 4 sets. And I'm not sold on the fact that this is the best card that you can run out of 4 sets worth of cards for that effect. Oracle Vault, exile the top card of your library until end of turn. You may play that card. Oh, that's what Oracle's Vault does. Yeah, I never really played with that at all. I remember being salty about Oracle's Vault because I feel like it's one of the closer things we have to GPG in that you can get creatures out with it, but it's nowhere near the same. Alright, Zenith Seeker, 3 and a blue. Flying, whenever you cycle or discard a card, target creature gains flying. Yeah, this is... I'm sorry. I want to try and talk a little bit slower so I can, you know, make the stream go on a bit longer, but I can't really find much to say about Zenith Seeker. All of these frickin' bird wizards are so bad. Like, if I can say one thing about Amonkhet, just don't run any bird wizards. Like, let's just go... This is how I'll prolong this stream. Try to make it as long as I can. But no, seriously, let's look at bird wizards. Look at how bad they are. If I can find one. Come on, one bird wizard, one time. Bird warrior, awful. Let's go to white. White has a lot of birds. Let's see. Bird wizard. I mean, this is probably the best bird wizard you can get. It has flash, and you can fuck up an evolving wild sack. but my bird wizard tribal, no. No, CGP, don't do it. Bird soldier. This bird's not awful. You can run it in your cycling deck, I guess. Come on, let's find more birds. Bird warrior. No, I don't want my bird warriors, man. It's like they really tried to force this bird thing, and it just didn't work at all. I'm sorry, Zenith Seeker. Your tribe is not one that I'm interested in. I guess you can run Suntail Hawk and Zenith Seeker with your bird tribal. Oh man. Okay, I'll stop. I'll stop there. No, I won't stop there. There's another card. You can name bird with your... Let's see if I can find it. With your Radiant Destiny, you can name bird and make your bird tribal deck. Okay. On to commit. Getting super derailed by trolling. Commit 3 and a blue instant. Put target spell or non-land permanent on top of its owner's library. Second from the top. Memory. Gonna have to turn my head sideways just to read this. Each player shuffles his or her library. And then his or her graveyard into his or her library. Then draws 7 cards. This card looks bad on the surface, and I kind of thought it was before Amonkhet comes out, because you're kind of running a 4-mana, like a Disperse-like effect. I know it can hit spells, so it can function as a counterspell. Arcane Adaptation, Bird. See that? We got bird fans in here. I'm sorry for picking on birds. I'm more of a cat person myself. For anyone that watched last video, you will understand that I'm a big fan of cats, and I'm very sad that Oketra is not a cat. Because I want to make my Oketra cat deck, what can I say? Call me janky, I don't care, man. I want Oketra cats. Anyway, commit. It looks kind of bad on the surface because it's such an expensive card to essentially slow them down. But man, I think this card's good. And I don't quite know how good it's going to be in Arena, but from my experience, in duels, I had a lot of fun with this card. One thing that I'd like to do is I would commit things with Sphinx's tutelage out, and then I would mill them, right? because they would be 2 cards from the bottom, and then Sphinx's Tutelage would put the top 2 cards of their library into their graveyard. That was a fun little interaction. And I think we can sort of replicate that. I know there's another... It's essentially Sphinx's Tutelage, but a little different. Forgive me, I cannot remember the name currently. But I know there's another Sphinx's Tutelage, basically, that came out in Hour of Dev. And maybe Commit could work with that, too. And I think this card actually saw play in Standard, which surprises me, because it sounds kind of slow. But buying yourself that time where they have to redraw their card and cast it, it's really good. And imagine if a land is on the top of their deck. Like, you commit something, and then they draw a land, and then they draw their card. Like, it really sets them back. You can also prevent yourself from getting milled, which is kind of nice. But yeah, I think this card's pretty good. I can't say definitively if it's going to be amazing or not, because there's going to be a lot of aggro decks that are in the format, and this might just be too slow. But I do have hopes for this card that it'll be just as fun as it was in Duels, because I'll tell you, whenever I played with Commit in Duels, I was never sad to play with it, I'll say that much. I always had interesting experiences playing with Commit, and I'm hoping that trend continues once we get into, Amonkhet and Hour of Dev, once those sets come into Arena, which hopefully isn't too long. I know the NDA is getting lifted before March 31st at the very latest, hopefully. They could delay it, they could be jerks. But in the next 29 days, I hope that we can play around without an NDA. And my hope is that when the NDA gets lifted, they are also going to give us all these cards. So that's kind of my dream right now. If that can happen, I'll be a content ninja. Not saying it will. Don't take this with a grain of salt. Don't take my words as fact, because this very well could not happen. But it's just kind of what I'm hoping on. Hopefully they don't delay it. Hopefully we get Amonkhet, and then we can stream Amonkhet as the NDA gets lifted. But that's going to do it for Blue. I hope you guys enjoyed. I am very excited for cycling right now. Just looking at all the white and blue cards for the first day, I'm very much a fan of making a cycling deck at this current time. I think it's going to be a lot of fun trying to go for that. Hopefully they tweak the economy a bit and we can actually go for that in a feasible way. But we'll see. Only time will tell. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed, and that's going to do it for the stream. I will be back again tomorrow, which is, what is tomorrow? Saturday, I believe? Let's see. Yeah, tomorrow is Saturday. And I will be back on Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I will be reviewing Black. So you guys will get to see what I think about Archfiend of Ifnir. That's a fun card to start on, right? Today I started out on Ancient Crab. You guys got to see what my opinion was on that card to start it out with. But now I get to talk about Archfiend Ifnir. So that's going to be fun. Again, hope you guys enjoyed, and take care. I'll see you next time. Thanks.